my mom made a piece of radioactive bubble gum when I was in the womb, and I came out like this.
They just kept pulling and pulling and pulling.
Oh, man. Hello, and welcome to StoryFellas, the podcast where we make stories and we break stories. I'm your host, Tommy Antonucci.
And I'm your host, Zach Lovelace.
And if you're watching the YouTube video, you're saying, Tommy, you're in bad video, bad lighting again. I am traveling once again. So this is my mobile setup. Do not have lights with me, so you got to deal with it.
You got to forgive us, you know?
Just look at Zach this entire episode. Just stare at that side of the screen. Don't look over here. Just look at Zach.
There you go.
Zach, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good, man. We were talking a little off mic, but the kids being sick is always like, that's the story in the house right now.
Yeah.
It just kind of takes things over, and that's a good thing. It sends us into just weird territory. Like our routine is all kind of weird and blipped out and everything. But yeah, we're watching a lot of Miyazaki movies. That's what we do when we're sick. You know, we watch Totoro.
Like the kids watch it too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kiki's Delivery Service. Those are the two.
You're just like, when the kids are sick, I lock myself in a room and I just watch Miyazaki.
Yeah, exactly. No, the kids don't watch it. They don't watch it. It's just for me, actually.
Dad! They're knocking at the door.
Dad, please. No, so we're just trying to make it work right now.
Nice. I hope they get feeling better soon.
Thank you. I mean,
Miyazaki's a good choice for like a sick movie. They're just the kind of very long and whimsical and
not super stressful. There are some we avoid, obviously. Hey kids, here's Princess Mononoke, where guys are getting their heads chopped off. Yeah, we don't do that. But Totoro is good because it's just like it's on. You know, it's low stimulation. And the music is. I mean, obviously, the craft is amazing. You know, like, so it doesn't matter what aspect of it is. It's going to be good, but that's where we're at, man. What about you?
Just traveling, visiting some family the last couple of days. Things are good. Nothing too crazy, honestly. Just taking it day by day.
Yeah.
And, but I'm excited because we entered this episode knowing exactly what we're going to do, because if you watch last episode, Zach gave me a choice between two stories and we went with one, but the other one was still equally as good. It was called Detective Gumshoe or something like that.
Yeah, it's something to that effect. I don't know if we actually, came up with a name other than what I had drawn on this piece of paper 10 years ago, The Uncanny Cases of Detective Gumshoe. So I'll scan this in and might be our thumbnail, might not be, we'll see. But I was having a good time with these Copic markers back in the day. Big dreams of being a comic artist, but I'm a little out of practice. That was 10 years ago.
Oh, I like the pictures, man. It makes me think of Boo from Dragon Ball Z a little bit.
Oh yeah, like Majin Buu, Baby Boo, or whatever. Yeah, that's interesting. Yep. Him being fatter would be nice. He's kind of just like a normal humanoid default shape, so.
Well, I feel like we didn't get into the nitty gritty of him. I think we're going to dive into Gumshoe today. I want to know what you know about Gumshoe. Like I want to know, does he have a little bit of an origin story? And is his power just he's gum, or does he like stretch and stuff?
That's a good point. I don't know. I feel like over the years, I thought that he was more of a just actual bubble gum. But I think as the years have gone on, it makes a little bit more sense. And I've always tried to distance myself from the Adventure Time kind of candy people thing.
Yeah.
So the whole world is candy, which would be actually kind of cool. We could find our own little spin on that. But that's basically the only guardrail I had or definition or whatever for this story in particular. And I had never really imagined it as a film, because typically we make, within one episode, we make a whole film idea. But it could be a TV pilot. It could be a comic book, kind of going back to my mega roots.
I feel like comic book feels fitting for this type of thing. Like if I saw this, I don't even collect comics, but if I saw one called Detective Gumshoe, and he's a man made of gum, I'd be like, I would read this. Yeah. This graphic novel. I would check this out.
That's cool. I mean, in terms of navigating that, I mean, I guess we could just go with like a single issue, which would really just be all setup. Like in terms of
Yeah.
comic
His
books, they're
origin
kind
story.
of that's a good one. They're really just notorious for like never making anything develop. You know, like you have one-offs where it's like they fight one guy, you know, Spider-Man fights, you know, Doc Ock, and that's it. And you know, there's usually a larger like personal arc that's going on, like, oh, Peter Parker's going after Mary Jane, but like no single issue needs to like move the needle. It's kind of comforting in that way. It's kind of not in terms of story. Like I'm very much a stakes and urgency guy. So
Yeah.
like giving me a finite amount of time, but I think with his origin story, you framing it in that way is a really good like setup where it's like, all you need to do is just like give us the basic facts about Gumshoe. So in this way, it's kind of a world building thing where it's like you're just introducing to the world and that's it.
That's true. It's kind of a scrap and world building a little bit. So
And that might be something we do going forward if we ever discern that like an idea really fits as a comic book. It's like, hey, this could be a comic, and this would be the first issue, or maybe I think first through the third issue, maybe you could come up with an arc of like a tiny thing if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think the distinction between world builders is like, are we trying to manifest plot or are we trying to manifest like logistics? Because logistics is like where the world, it's like, how does this spaceship work in the sci-fi? How does this magic work? How does Gumshoe's world work? Whereas if we're just developing plot, then it's like, okay, no, we're still in that scrap or story game mentality, but world builders is. So we'll see. We'll see how in the weeds we get.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And regardless, even if it's a comic book, I think that gives us something to go off of, the fact that it doesn't necessarily resolve. But a story is a story. Like, we still need to follow the structure and the beats of like to make a satisfying story. Do you want to start the story with him not being Gum? Or do you
I think so. I think that would be that would make sense. I mean, that's a great like just fork in the road question. Is he Gum? Is he just naturally Gum? And that kind of tells you like the whole world has people in it that are just naturally weird like that. Like, you know, what does it mean to be made out of food of some kind? Kind of cool. Or did he get turned into that and he just deals with it? And, you know, yeah, he's special.
Did you ever see the show Fighting Foodons back in the day?
What? No, never heard of this in my life.
It was like a Pokemon spinoff, kind of, but then they had like all these characters that were basically Pokemon, but they were like food-based things, and they would fight each other. I'm surprised you hadn't heard of this. I don't think it lasted very long. I think it was like on
the guy with
Cartoon Network.
The egg head, or no, it was like half an orange on a plate.
Yeah, there was like a guy, one of the guys, main guy was called like Fried Ricer, and he was like a man with like fried rice for head, and he had two giant spoons, and he would
that's what I'm looking at right here.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It was, I don't remember much about it, but it was clearly a Pokemon ripoff. But it makes me think of that a little bit.
Yeah, because I want to play with food. You know, like they're not monsters, Mom. They're food.
So I think, yeah, I'm playing with my food. I think Gumshoe, it naturally. So I think you could tell the story seriously, but him being made of gum also leads, but being this like hardened detective, he's like I'm hard chewing gum. I think leans itself into maybe not full comedy, but in that One Punch Man era, like that range where the whole world's serious, but it's kind of absurd that we have our main protagonist and he's like, yeah, I'm made of gum.
Yeah,
and it's like
true,
really brooding. And I even like it where it's like, my mom ate a piece of radioactive bubble gum when I was in the womb and I came out like this.
They just kept pulling and pulling and pulling.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's a good point. I kind of like the idea that he's not actually like literally gum, but that he's just a stretchy pink substance. So it's like a version of Mr. Fantastic or something like that in terms of powers or whatever. Doesn't mean whether he came out that way, like experimentally got turned into that, doesn't matter. Like just that he's not like literally you could take a bite of him
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That is like, I do like the joke, but this is an extreme comedy version. They're like, quick, that man's falling to his death. Catch him, Gumshoe. He's like, what? They're like, use your stretchy powers. He's like, I don't have stretchy powers. They're like,
Yeah.
wait,
That's actually funny.
are you just gum? He's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to chew me. You got to chew me up.
Yeah, chew me up. No, I think him stretching and stuff, that makes sense. Him like shape shifting a little bit. He's kind of like Plastic Man a little bit, but his
that's
default
Plastic
form
Man.
is just a pink guy with like a detective.
I do like that he's
coat.
serious though, like you said, kind of a hard boiled
Yeah.
detective type thing.
I think that's what makes it funnier and interesting. Like he's like Batman, like he carries himself like Batman kind of detective wise, but he is like gummy. I think that's funny.
Yeah.
And if it's just him, then we can have like normal criminals, or we could have like another like super powered criminal. Like the joke version is it's Shoo Man, my arch nemesis. Shoo Man steps on me all the time.
Wouldn't it, like, I guess it's kind of a trade off at that point if he gets stepped on, because it's like his arch nemesis. I guess because you'd be killing him, but he'd be stuck on the shoe.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Like, and the whole idea, a gumshoe is an old name for a detective.
Yeah.
So that's somebody who would follow you and they would step in your gum, basically.
Gotcha.
So whether it's a private detective, I imagine that makes a little bit more sense, more noir-esque in terms of the genre that we're in. So we have like femme fatales, we have gangsters. I do imagine like Batman the Animated Series, that level of Gotham, which had like a perfect mix of like modern tech, but all the Art Deco kind of brooding everything of Gotham City. So Bruce Timm's animated Batman from the 90s. And instead of Batman, we have just a hard-boiled guy that's stretchy and pink.
I like it. I think it's funny. You could almost just take the Batman story, like give him a commissioner to work with, give him like whatever,
True,
like
yeah.
give him like or just a cop to work with. I like that. I like that a lot. And he's just this hardened criminal.
I think he should look like
or
this
not criminal,
picture
but he's just
that
a
I
hardened
did.
detective.
The picture where he has the turtleneck on. Obviously, I'm
Yeah.
describing it for the podcast audience, but like that's really what he looks like. He's not naked, just so you know.
For the audience, there's a lot of just like pink blob guys from head to toe, and then there's one with a turtleneck. So I was imagining he was wearing like a turtleneck, but I also imagine that like Plastic Man, like it's his skin, like he doesn't like morph out of his clothes.
It all stretches with him.
It
totally
all stretches. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. I like that. I think he does he have a love interest, a dame that he's interested in?
Yeah, he definitely. She's like, you could turn into anybody. Why do you turn into this? He's like, it's who I am, babe.
Yeah. This is always going to be me underneath. That'd be kind of cool that he does shapeshift, like, his face and everything. And he just like looks like different people, but they're just pink.
That's I was gonna make the joke that he can shapeshift, but they're always pink. And then like the cop's like, this isn't really that helpful. This isn't a very helpful skill.
Yeah, it'd be more helpful to like fit through a keyhole than it would be to like change your appearance. But he could do it.
I kind of feel like him, like not giving him maybe full, like he can't like fully impersonate a guy, because I think as a detective it might make things too easy for him. But I think he can pick a lock with his hands and stuff, and he can turn into them, but like he's clearly still pink if he does that.
Yeah, I do think and maybe I'm thinking of it as an animated TV show at this point, but it's still a comic book first edition of Gumshoe. I think it should be subtitled Pink Elephants. For some reason, I just think that's cool. Like he turns into an elephant, maybe at one point in the episode, or maybe that's just like a clever nod to like what was going on in the episode, and that might give us some plot at that point. Maybe there's some sort of scheme at the zoo, or like a murder that happened at the zoo. Somebody fell into like a tank, and he gets hired by the family to take a look at this. A gangster guy maybe fell into the tank, or maybe like an innocent person, like just a guy, maybe a business owner of some kind or whatever. But the family's like, this was foul play. This wasn't an accident
Yeah.
that he fell in and got stomped on by elephants.
Yeah, the elephants are usually very docile. I don't know what would have caused them to stomp.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because that's like a unique setting too that you don't know
Yeah, like
unless you're
imagine like a
we
1940s New York zoo. And that's
Mhm,
like because the cages, they had like the concrete in a circle, and then they had the fence, and you could like look
mhm.
down into the pit or whatever, and there'd be whatever animal. What animal do you think killed this guy? A lion is too obvious.
Yeah, elephants. Like if your title is pink elephants, then an elephant is pretty good. Um, it's just like a meerkat killed him.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
that's
like the
yeah.
meerkat killed this guy.
Well, there's a
It's
lot
like,
of them. There was a lot of them. But yeah, you're right.
oh
The elephants could work where it's like, elephants, they are territorial from time to time. It's not like it's totally unheard of.
yeah.
And maybe
You
that's
could also
again that
do
is the
like a shark
mystery.
tank or something like that, or an
Or
octopus.
crocodiles,
Yeah, there's
bears,
lots of dangerous animals. Yeah, he
like a
dropped him in
big
a tank with every dangerous animal. They
yeah.
all had a piece.
I mean, you could world build wise, you could have it be just a crazy animal. It doesn't have to exist, you
Mm,
know.
that's true.
Although I think the real comedy engine is the
Yeah.
contrast of like the certain fantastic characters exist within a very mundane noir world.
Yeah, I was thinking it'd be funny if the whole thing was black and white except for his pink skin would be funny.
It's like Sin
That might
City.
be, yeah, it might be a little much, but I think so. Like going through like story circle stuff, like like we're kind of establishing Gumshoe pretty quickly. Like almost like the crime happens. I think the crime happens, and they're like, "There's one guy we gotta call. Like I know a
Yeah.
guy who can figure this out." And then it's this gummy guy, this like guy made of gum, shows up. And then I think pretty early on we introduce like just the detective beats. Like he shows up, he's there, he's taking notes. Um,
He
maybe
spots
we
a
get
piece of
us,
evidence that they didn't see.
yeah, he's like he just they're like at the top of the thing. They like move the elephants out, and then he's like, "Hey, I see something down there." He's like, "Oh well, we can get the keys," and like he just does like a big step, like a big
Oh yeah, yeah.
like a Gumby step down, and we get samples of his powers basically
Yeah.
immediately at the beginning, and he like finds something. I like the idea also where it's like that was at first it's just like, oh, it's foul play, but then it was also realized that it was a diversion and there was like some rare small animal that was stolen that during the same time.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I like that. Like
Because
a
it's
bird.
like, yeah, and it's like, they're like, oh, this guy, yeah, there's like some, that'd be cool because a bird's really small and might, in the hoopla, you probably wouldn't realize the bird's not there.
Hmm.
And then they're like, wait, this is a rare bird. It's priceless. Sweet. Well,
Or
what
even a
happened to it?
bug. Because like
Yeah.
a bug, you're really not like that's even smaller and it could be more delicate. It could be like a certain type of beetle or something. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that where it's either stolen for ransom or it's stolen because it has like some sort of
Property.
property that they're trying to
Yeah.
extract from it. I think that's kind of cool. And it's because that gives him something tangible to like track down again, like a diamond, like it's
Totally.
not
Yeah.
just him solving the crime. He needs to recover this beetle for the zoo. It's like, why does the zoo have like a vault in it? It's like we've got some rare animals.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have like the reptile house or whatever, like all of
Yeah.
that. So there's a little area where all the bugs are at in tanks and stuff, and some of them are hibernating. Like this, I think a spider is really interesting in terms of noir type symbolism and stuff, like a Spider Woman, somebody who's again a femme fatale, and like spiders and sticky things kind of go together.
That's true. I kind of also like it if instead of just throwing a person in there, like there was like animals got out and made a little stampede and broke some of the things. And then because then that's more of a cover up where it's like, oh yeah, these things got broken. He's like, yeah, but this stampede went that way. And this is the only case that got broken over here. Like he picks up on that. And then they're like, what was in here? And they're like, there was this really rare beetle that we had. And so the whole ruse was made so that they could steal one thing. That's very
Yeah.
like Sherlock Holmes. Like, why would you shoot a man in an explosion kind of
Yes,
situation?
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
that to make sure he's dead
Why
and to
would
cover
you
up the
shoot a
fact that
man
he was
before
shot.
throwing him out of a plane? Is that what you're gonna say?
No, there was in one of the Sherlock Holmes. There's like an explosion, everyone dies, but then they find that there was a bullet hole in one of the people, and they're like, okay, well, how do you make sure someone's dead, and how do you make there be no
Cover the
questions of
tracks.
them getting shot? Is like you had an explosion, but you confirm that they're definitely dead.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that kind of thing. It's like, well, the stampede just broke things. It's like, yeah, but this one looks like it was broken intentionally.
Definitely a big lie to cover up, well, not a small crime. Obviously, killing someone isn't small, but maybe the
I think people do
zookeeper-
die in the stampede. Like I think still like an
Yeah, and
innocent
the
person or
pink
two
elephants
die.
thing I think comes in because it's an elephant stampede.
Yeah.
There's like 2 or 3 elephants that get let out, and they got spooked. So it's like, oh, what happened? And he goes into the tank and stuff. I like the idea that there's a cop that doesn't like him.
Yeah.
And then there's another cop that does, like a beat cop,
Yeah.
not a
Like the chief doesn't
commissioner.
like him.
Yeah, the chief doesn't like him.
commissioner- Yeah.
He's
I like
because we're
that
kind of
thing.
flipping the Batman thing a little bit, where it's like, I like the idea that they're like, hey, we don't want that thing contaminating the crime scene.
Yeah.
You know,
we don't
it's
want
like-
that gum all over the evidence.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna gum it all up. What is his real name? Because I think Gumshoe is not his real name. That's what people call him. And maybe I don't know. Maybe it is his real name, or adopted name, kind of thing. Where it's like, this is who I am.
Yeah,
there's
it's
no-
like kind of a Rorschach thing where he has a real name.
Yeah.
But he's like, I am Gumshoe. I think Don feels like a detective name, you
Yeah.
know, like a old school. And like I feel like the girl would maybe call him his name.
his name.
you know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Like Donald Shoo.
Yeah, I mean, Shoo is a real last name. I like that actually.
Donald
Donnie.
Shoo is Don.
Yeah.
Oh, I like Donnie better. Donnie
Shoo.
Shoo.
She calls him Donnie, but he goes by, it's like Donald Shoo.
Yep.
Shoo fly, don't bother me.
It's Shoo. No, I like that. I like that a lot. And then what's her name? What's his kind of maybe not even like super steady girlfriend, but this like to Sherlock Holmes, the girl that always comes into his life and stuff, you know?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. She'd have
Except
to have
she's
a
like
role.
not evil, really. Or maybe she is. I don't know.
Is she like a dancer or singer or something? Somebody that would be in a nightclub or in an area that like she could hear things that are like, oh, I heard word on the street is blah blah blah.
Yeah. Like I kind of want him to go to a bar and she shows up and chats with him. And it's like,
Or she's like
flirtatious.
just already singing, like, and comes down after singing
Yeah.
and like sits down next to him. It's like, oh, hey.
She plays the tuba. She plays the
Yeah.
tuba in the band. No, I think she's a singer, and then she'll be like, takes breaks, and then comes and talks to him.
So bear with me here. Sometimes names are just plopped into my head. Dame Liddell.
Dame Liddell. How do you spell Liddell? Ladeel?
Yes. Double L at the end.
Double L at the end.
And then
I like
actually
that.
an E at the end. L-A capital
Yeah.
D-E-L-L-E. Liddell.
Oh,
Yeah.
capital D.
I know. I'm getting crazy.
Fancy.
And
I think
Liddell
that's
might be
funny
her.
that her name is Dame. and
Yeah.
it's like I like that though. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's cute.
So because I want to noirify the world. I want to make it more of like the pastiche of the 40s kind of thing. More because Dick Tracy's definitely all over the drawings that I did here. Like this one especially of the like profile of this guy's face. I mean, it's Gumshoe's face, but like that version of him who's a little more hard boiled. But she's like, I know you're a real softie. She knows he's.
Oh, that's
he's a
fun.
real-
That's a fun line. I know you're a real softie.
Like I know where your soft spots are at. I think is what she would say. I knew you before you were all gummed up.
Countless lines.
Yeah. I mean, it obviously you don't want to be like too punny, but like that's again the contrast. I think there are other characters like him. We didn't really decide whether or not he got his powers or he was. Well, yeah, we did. That he was human before. But I do like that there are other weirdo characters in the world.
He solved a case at like a candy factory, and he fell into some vat of
Falling into a
candy.
vat is a really classic way to get powers for sure.
Yeah, it's just instead of like acid, it's like candy, like radioactive.
Or he got
radio-
shot up, and they, instead of giving him a blood transfusion, they gave him a gum transfusion. Or it's like, some sort of like gum ingredients got injected into him to like save his life or whatever. And then
it was at the candy factory, and there's like raw candy nectar material. They're like, we don't have time to get him to the hospital. They're like, use this. They're like, I think that'll kill him. They're like, we have no other choice. And they just inject him
in his
with
mouth.
They're like, oh yeah. Put an IV, and then
That, or like maybe he got poisoned on a case or something. And like to save his life, maybe this would be like a supporting character, as like a scientist that helps him from time to time. Maybe actually, that's actually a really interesting dynamic, is that there was an evil scientist who was like going to poison a bunch of candy. That's very evil. And he ends up, he's like, it was on the case, like kids were dying and he was on the case to like find the person poisoning the candy or whatever. And it turns out it was this mad scientist kind of guy that has some sort of axe to grind, and that was his way of doing it. But and maybe Gumshoe was known for like chewing gum, like as a detective, like that was his thing. And so maybe the guy poisons a piece of gum that like then gives him the powers, but he goes back to the guy in prison. That's the dynamic I like. So kind of a Hannibal Lecter type thing. He like goes back to this guy and like never fully understands, but this guy is like a criminal mastermind, and he helps him solve some of the cases from time to time.
I think that's kind of cool. Like he's got like a big prison room. Like he's like like he's not getting out, but he's relatively like comfortable. And then he comes and reluctantly helps him or something.
Well, because he wants to know how to get cured. I think that's Gumshoe's arc, is like, I don't want to be this way. And you turned me into this, and he's like, it's like, you turned yourself into that. You loved gum, That's not, he wouldn't say that necessarily, but there's I like that dynamic. That's really interesting that he could just go talk to the guy that he caught. And that guy is actually kind of a help to him, in his, again, it's like a Hannibal Lecter type thing.
You could also, depending on the thing, I think, hear me out. He goes there and he's, we're kind of jumping around in the story, but he asks about this beetle or something. He's like, do you know anything about this beetle? He's like, oh, I know some things about it.
It secretes,
and like whatever, whatever quality this beetle has, he's like, it's like, it actually can be, it has like a mild poison, and that's why people keep it locked up. But however, with a few tweaks to it, it can be deadly. Like it can be like, you can elevate this thing, because he's like, that's his whole shtick. He's like a poison maker. Like he creates potions and stuff. And he's like, well, you're here. He's like, I had a student once, and maybe that's our main bad. Like our big bad
that's cool.
is like
that
this, like like a female student of his. I like it being like a female bad guy. That's kind of cool. Or it can be another guy, but
I think that's a good twist, that it's like, turns out it's actually, you're thinking it's this one guy, and maybe they're in cahoots. Like it's multiple people. It's not just this one guy, or girl or whatever. But yeah, I do like that. I like, the candy maker basically being the scientist's name,
I like that a lot. It's like scary for a bad guy. Candy maker.
It is. It reminds me there's a lot of great Batman graphic novels, but there's one called The Long Halloween. It's a great origin story kind of tale for Two-Face. But there's a bad guy in there named Calendar Man. And it basically just kills people on holidays. And
I saw like some video about Calendar Man, because like it was like at one point, I think there was a video where like there's one comic where he gets the power to like hop through time or something like that.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Or like I think it's like super meta, where he can hop through the panels of a comic.
Oh, wow. That is very meta.
Because he doesn't have powers, right? He just kills people.
Yeah, that's just obviously like planner, schemer, killer kind of guy. Yeah. But like they're very elaborate, and so really plays into and tests Batman as a detective. Which I really like. So yeah, the idea that their destinies, I mean, and also to the point of like Gumshoe hunting the candy maker's protege, that is very much Silence of the Lambs. Like Buffalo Bill, the bad guy that Jodie Foster's character Clarice is hunting, was with Hannibal Lecter at one point, and he like recognized he was a killer and that kind of stuff. So that's why she goes to him and is like, "Oh, hey, help me crack this case, and help me catch your protege." But yeah, the candy maker being the big bad, King Candy, whatever. Anyway, the guy's last name could be Candy. That's kind of cool. But yeah, he got the nickname of being the candy maker, and maybe he was a chef of some kind, like just doing all the origin backstory stuff for these people. But I like the idea that he knows the beetle because it's usually an ingredient, and he's like, and with one simple tweak, it's really quite delicious, But yeah, he like obviously is, speaking in riddles and isn't giving straightforward information. And so Gumshoe is forced to investigate things. I think we need to have him fight like 2 times within the first issue. He shows up somewhere again after he finds that it's the beetle that actually went missing. And the zoo and everyone around it, like they just assume that it got out because of the elephants. Like there's all a bunch of cases and everything cracked, but there's only with this one, like there wasn't a crack on the case. The top was just off. And he just realizes, he's like, that doesn't make sense. That's the one thing askew. Like there's cases next to it that are smashed and everything, but like this one was just off. So he's like, and he sees that there's no beetle in there and he reads it. I love the idea that he like looks down and like just reads the label or whatever. And it's like,
used to make poison candy. No, I think I like that a lot. I think I have a bad guy name for the protege.
Oh, okay.
If we have the candy maker, a tentative bad guy name for this protege could be Sweet Tooth.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And like leaving kind of riddles for Gumshoe along the way. Like not at first but then like toying with him. I also like that idea if it's this woman who's the mastermind, like she shows up as this like overeager reporter. Like she's just like, but like, no hunch. This is clearly a spoiler for the movie, but she'd be like this, like really like kind of naive, young, energetic, like, oh, Gumshoe, do you have any new things on the report or whatever, blah, blah, blah. She like shows up a few times.
Yeah.
And like asking him questions. And then at the end, she's actually like super confident. And that was all like a ruse. Like
totally.
For her to just get into places. Yeah.
I like the idea. So, and this isn't in the first, because I feel like that's a several issue arc for the comic, none of this would get resolved.
Yeah, we don't even meet, like the end of the first issue, you might get the name, like Sweet Tooth or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Somehow.
And I think having a nice moment where and even all the stuff that we're learning about Gumshoe, we don't need to be learning half of that. It's really mainly just him on the beat looking for this crime or looking for the beetle. And so we established the beetle is like, pretty early on in the issue. We established Dame Liddell. He's like looking for information. Maybe he knows like a certain gangster owns the zoo, that kind of thing. So he's like, what's going on here? Like you telling me that Mickey, whatever, let elephants get out. And, it's like, it sounds like, there's some sort of war going on, like a Cold War that nobody knows about, and somebody decided to send a message to Mickey or like wanted this beetle and he wasn't willing to give it up, kind of thing. I don't know. But then maybe Mickey dies because of the beetle poison. And Gumshoe goes to the morgue. I like that a lot. And he knows the morgue guy. I think that's really cool.
I like
the coroner. Like he's really good friends with the coroner.
So I'm making some notes of some of these names.
I like the coroner is like a fat guy, that he loves candy, and so like Gumshoe's always bringing him stuff, and he's just like,
I did have this little thing. I think it'd be nice, like if like kids, because he's like a superhero too, so I feel like kids would recognize him and be like, Mr. Gumshoe, and then like while he's this like hardened criminal, like he'll stoop down on his haunches and reach in his pocket and like give them a piece of bubble gum and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I like that he does have candy.
You don't
'Cause
think it would be weird that you're like giving out parts of yourself to children to chew on?
What's weird is if he broke his finger off and gave it to the
Yeah,
kids.
Here you go, kid.
Okay. It's so good.
Hey,
It's
kid,
so
pull
good,
my
Mr.
finger. Just like gross. No, I think it's funny, and it's funny to like talk about, like make jokes like that and stuff. But I do think like the actual story won't be that ridiculous, like
Yeah.
that punny or whatever.
Yeah.
Again, it's
No, I think he just maybe hands out. He keeps candy in his pockets for like kids, and
Yeah.
maybe brings it to the corner guy because he's like, hey, you're.
I know what you do for the kids. You don't want to get me any candy, Gumshoe. And I think that's funny, where he's like a grown dude, just kind of like sarcastically, but then he's like, I'm actually being serious, whatever. But yeah, he gives him,
A candy bar
whatever.
or something.
Yeah, candy bar. That's a nice one. Don't hold out on me.
I feel like the arc of this issue is that we have the thing, the Beatles missing. The Mickey zoo owner guy dies and because of some weird poison. I feel like where we're leading to is there's some thug or someone who's like some low-level mini-boss scientist that's implementing the poison. I don't know if we want to resolve the beetle. It feels like we kind of need to resolve the beetle before the end. And then he's like, are you behind this? And basically we get, oh, this guy's just a pawn.
Yeah.
It's like, who are you working for? And we maybe end on I only know a name, Sweet Tooth.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of the start of.
That's cool.
That's like
I do think working on the battle or the fight would basically the big third act of this one issue, the origin issue would be that he does show up at like an abandoned kind of factory or whatever where the guy was synthesizing the poison. He shows up and there's maybe a couple of thugs that he fights and it's just whatever. But then the guy, the one who's been actually synthesizing it or whatever, is able to get some sort of fire thing and is able to fight him with that. So it's not just like a fist fight, because he could probably pretty easily beat up anybody. And nobody could really hurt him unless we wanted to like dial back his powers a little bit. Like I do think if he got hit over the head, that would probably hurt him. But generally speaking, like everything, but even then, if he could fit through a keyhole, it's like he's really gummy.
Yeah, he's really gummy. I feel like extreme temperatures is his weakness.
So maybe a fire extinguisher, because like cold and gum, it like hardens him.
Yeah, or he has like a nitrogen blaster or something like that. That's like freezing parts of him.
That would.
I think that's cool. But then how does he overcome that?
They don't need to be a supervillain. Like they don't need to have it like in a suit or anything like that. No. I think that's why I thought a fire extinguisher kind of makes sense, because, that's just on the wall and the guy just grabs it and it's just like, or maybe he tries to hit him with it and it just goes like right through him, and he sprays him in the face and he's just like, and Gumshoe has a hard time, like blinds him, and then he gets like frozen. Anyway.
He's frozen.
Well, I mean, maybe then the guy gets away, like took the beetle with him, or maybe, no, actually I like the idea that he's like, he has the beetle and he's like got it, and it like proves that he was right to the police. He is fighting and everything. He gets blasted with the fire extinguisher and drops the beetle. And he like, as soon as he gets it off his face, and maybe he's like super slow, he can't do anything, the beetle's crawling away and the guy just like stomps and like drags his foot. It's just like the evidence that goes away, basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that. And then this low-level boss gets away, basically. So then, do we even learn the name of the mastermind, or how would we learn the name of the mastermind? Or maybe we don't. Maybe we don't in this issue.
Yeah. I think we just imply that there's a bigger thing.
Yeah, he's like, you don't know how deep this goes.
Yeah, basically.
Like after he squishes the bug, and then it's like, we have way bigger plans than this. Just you wait.
We could make that henchman guy, that underboss guy, we can make him a little bit more colorful and interesting if he eats the beetle. It's like maybe he gets grabbed by Gumshoe and, after the fire extinguisher fight or whatever, he has it, and the guy has the beetle. He's trying to get away, and then he's just like, oh, and it kills him. Like he suicides with the beetle.
I think that's interesting because it kind of paints this. We're like dealing with like crazier characters, at that point. And then he gets rid of the evidence. Although they might be able to like to figure out if the poison's in him, like. But like maybe that's not the point. That's not the point. Like they can determine unless
he can't talk about it though. Yeah. Like it's a dead end. They're like,
they're
okay,
like, this guy did have the beetle, but we don't really know any more than why did he have the beetle? What were they doing?
I like that guy was the zookeeper. That he had like gotten a job at the zoo.
Okay.
And he's just a kind of a sketchy, let's call him Shank. Like
Shank.
that's his last name. His name is
the zookeeper.
Let's see. Roy Shank.
Roy Shank.
And maybe he had like a criminal background. He's like, was in a criminal asylum for a while. And it's like, how does this guy get a job? And that can maybe be the next issue, is like him digging into like, okay, Roy Shank. What was this guy about?
That's his lead, is like figuring out what his backstory is, who he's crossed paths with.
And Roy could be there at the beginning crime scene, and he's just like, he's the first witness basically. It's just like, maybe he got hit over the head, and he really actually was in on it the whole time.
I think that's cool. I think we've got, I like all the misdirects, which obvious viewer, you're seeing all the misdirects, but they're going to be super cool in the movie because you have to bury
in
them.
the comic, in the comic.
In the comic.
But again, the StoryFellas, we are dedicated to stories. Doesn't matter the medium. So whatever works best. Like again, I thought maybe an animated TV show.
That I think I keep picturing it like a Batman. Like I think it could also work as that.
A 21-ish minute episode.
Where they just hunt down this beetle.
Yeah, and then I like that a lot.
I like it. I feel like that's the story, man. I feel like that's issue 1 of Gumshoe. Do we want to call it just Detective Gumshoe, or do we want to call it like Detective Gumshoe extended title?
I mean, the thing I had written on here is the Uncanny Cases of Detective Gumshoe. That would be like the long title.
I like that. The Uncanny Cases of Detective Gumshoe. And if we come back, I can't spell detective to save my life. Holy cow. I feel like that's just like for this episode, like that's the name of it. Part of me wants to revisit this down the road and be like, let's tell more Gumshoe, because I'm interested in this big boss, and I'm interested in where he tracks down Roy Shank, like his past, and where like he goes to the asylum and he's like, who does this guy talk to? It's like, oh, he'd have a visitor that come every once in a while, and then it writes itself, man.
It does.
Itself.
Well, we're leaning heavy on genre, the noir genre, and detective genre. So which is about like, just information, what people know, and like cutting off streams of information, and then the detective has to think of different ways to get that same bit of information. So, or something else happens. But yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I think Gumshoe's a cool character. I think if anything, we didn't get a ton of like his perspective, like his worldview. I guess him being he's jaded, right? Like that would be his thing is that he wants to be normal again, and he's like, I don't want to be like this. He's a hardened guy that's soft on the outside. Like I think that's
hard
funny.
On the inside.
Yeah. Like, well, no, it's like the joke is like a detective is usually like obviously a hardened guy on the outside and soft on the inside, but now he got transformed to where his soft stuff is on the outside. But that doesn't mean that he actually is like super emotional and everything. It's just a representation and an interesting contrast that he actually he does hide my softest part of me is on the inside.
Yeah, he's like the Thing in Fantastic Four. Basically. And I think that's like something to play with as issues continue. that's kind of, in a way, a weakness. Like would he be willing to let something slide if someone could promise, oh, I could fix you though. Like I can
Totally.
fix
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. That's exploitable.
If you let us do this. So I think that's interesting. And also if it's the first episode, we don't have to develop him completely, but I think that's the beats where those are the
Yeah. You
beats
got to
we're
show
trying to
him
hit.
being like looking in the mirror and being like, man, look at me. The one
Yeah.
cop, the beat cop that gives him a hard time, or the commissioner is just like, pointing out that he's wearing turtlenecks and suit coats and stuff. And he's like, you may wear these fancy clothes, but you're still a freak. It's like it's almost a compensation thing that he is so well put together.
Yeah. For Dame, do we want her to be like a full on, like, I think we clearly hint that she's a romantic interest, but are we kind of playing her more as like a friend, a companion to him, rather than
Source
like
of
a full on
information.
girlfriend?
She's more of a coworker in the
Yeah.
underground than she is like like, I think the whole thing is like she was an old flame before he got turned into gum.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole
Yeah.
thing is like that got put on hold. So
But she like still cares for him, but
Yeah.
also like he almost, it's almost on hold more for him because it's like maybe she still is like, hey, I still care about you and
I'm
stuff.
willing to
and
make
he
this
just-
work. She like puts her hand on his hand and he's just like,
Yeah. He's like, no. If she's more of like a CD underground, like she could be a singer. I also kind of like her being a bartender. It's kind of cool as well. But depends on what vibe you want to go.
I don't know. I mean, I don't mind either way. I think a singer is
works
just
the
like
same.
a little bit flashier kind of thing.
Yeah,
she'd be
that's
invited
true.
places as opposed to like I'm stuck in one location kind of thing.
No, that's fair. Yeah, she's kind of even if she's singing in kind of some seedier nightclubs, like she is kind of a important local celebrity, so she might be invited places. She's like, I got invited by this guy as his date to the thing, and that obviously upsets Gumshoe. But she's clearly not interested in the guy. She's thinking, oh, I could get some information if I go do this thing.
Yeah, I like that. I like that but also she tells him like, I can't be seen with you. Because it's like obviously you're our pink detective. Like you can't hide where you're at. When people see you, they know that you're looking for things, and people don't like to be looked at that much. So wherever you go, and he's like, he sticks out because he's obviously superpowered now. But he's like, I'm not some sort of superhero. I don't have an alter ego. This is my face, So it's like, whatever. I like that where it's like, this is my face. It is very much The Thing, who's one of my favorite superheroes for sure. Obsessed with the cure, obsessed with getting, and like tracking that arc, the mystery of like, okay, how do I get turned back?
Yeah.
And maybe he could fall. There's like other characters you could bring in down the line where it's like a girl who's been also transformed, other criminal type people that he could maybe relate to. So, but yeah, he's got to find informants and other support characters in subsequent episodes. I think that's who you'd bring in and kind of deepen the cast a little bit. But yeah, I'm digging my buddy Donald Shoo.
I like it. I think this is a cool story. And I feel like we fleshed it out a lot.
Yeah, and typically we end episodes with and along the lines and a title already has a title.
Yep.
And then along the lines you've heard like 50 lines. I think the ones
do you have a favorite that you want to end the show on?
I was going to say,
which one stood out to you?
I do think the commissioner guy saying to him, you may wear these fancy clothes, but you're still just a freak. It's more serious. It's not like a gummy pun or anything. And it speaks to his character, that he chooses to present himself in a certain way to kind of compensate for his transformation, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of a line that kind of gets to the heart. And that's why it seems like a simple line, but it's effective against him because that's like striking to the core of what he is ashamed of, so to speak. I like it, man. I think Detective Gumshoe, we might revisit Gumshoe down the road. And just so I know, is Gumshoe 2 words or is Gumshoe 1 word?
I believe it's 1 word, but I can confirm here. It is one word.
Nice. All right. Well, audience, thanks for listening to our animated show or
Or a comic or
book.
both.
Yeah. Both. Yeah, all of it, all the IP. If you have any thoughts for more scenes or titles or other things like that, I think our title's pretty solid. But if you have comments on the story, or you just want to say you liked it, or you thought of this other scene, we've got, you can comment in the YouTube video. You can also message us through the links in the description, and we'd love to hear from you. Hear what you think about Gumshoe.
Yeah.
And I think that's a wrap for our story. So until next time, we'll catch you in the next one.
See ya.
Thank you all for listening to StoryFellas, a part of the Pemmican Studios podcast network. Check out our show notes for bonus material, links, and more. To find out more about our current projects, send us messages, and suggest ideas for the show, go to storyfellaspodcast.com. If you liked what you heard, share the show with a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to grow this community. Until next time, go make and break those stories.